Mount Everest has lured thousands of climbers, hoping to conquer its heights. Many have failed. Hundreds have died. Dave Rodney, a North American climber from the prairies, knows all about that.
It's such an adrenaline rush that you get as you're going up and you're looking down and as you continue to the top. And once you get there and you look at what you've accomplished, it fills you with such confidence.
Dave Rodney grew up on the Canadian prairies, one of the flattest areas on the planet. So as a boy, a picture of a Swiss mountain scene in his grandfather's house had an enormous effect.
I just couldn't help but wonder, what does the view look like from way up there, looking down here? And I think that's really where my Everest dreams were born.
He did things to the fullest, all the time, right from the beginning.
Being from the prairies did not discourage his dream.
Take that horizontal horizon that we have, turn it vertical, and you've got Mount Everest.
In his 20s and early 30s, Rodney would scale mountains in the West Indies, Australia, and North and South America. Then, in 1997, Rodney is asked to handle communications for an expedition to Everest. But that job won't take him higher than base camp, and he feels the frustration and anxiety of watching others ascend the heights he's dreamed about.
There were days when my stomach was in knots for various reasons. One of the reasons was that I didn't know for sure that I would see those people again.
Before long, Rodney's fears are realized. One of the Sherpa climbers from another team suffers a terrible accident. While crossing the dreaded Khumbu icefall, with its soaring 1,000-foot ice towers and equally deep crevices, he falls 150 feet. Rodney is called on for help.
When I got up there, he was already on oxygen. I held his head in my hands in traction. So when I lifted my arm up, it was just dripping with blood.
Rodney helps save the climber's life. The experience is unsettling and yet exhilarating. Working with the other climbers makes him think he could become a member of an actual Everest expedition. Back home in Canada, Rodney's journey begins with a phone call to Denis Brown.
Just leave it there.
Brown is a doctor from British Columbia planning a summit bid. He's looking for an experienced climber to document his trip.
One of my goals was to become the first Canadian to climb Everest as an asthmatic without using any bottled oxygen. My second was to serve as expedition physician on this particular expedition.
There's only 1/3 the amount of oxygen available to breathe on the summit of Mount Everest that we enjoy down here at sea level. It's a race against time. The body actually starts eating its own flesh, looking for the energy and oxygen that it craves.
Climbing Everest is always about personal bests, and Rodney, rather than troubled by Brown's condition, identifies with his goal. After extensive training, they are ready, physically and mentally.
One of the best things about going on an Everest expedition is simply getting to base camp. Our route went from Calgary to Vancouver to Los Angeles to Tokyo to Bangkok.
March 1999. A short flight to Kathmandu takes Rodney and Brown to the start of their journey. A 10-day trek through Nepal to the Everest base camp. Immediately upon arrival at base camp, Rodney and Brown feel there is something wrong with the organization of the expedition.
We had people who'd done lots of rock climbing, but had never been to altitude. I really felt some of the individuals shouldn't have been on the trip.
Soon it will become clear there are problems with the bottled oxygen. The valves used to access the oxygen don't always work.
Because some of the cylinders were from one source, some of the cylinders were from another source, and that means you have to have different regulators for your different bottles.
By now, Rodney and Brown have met Michael Matthews, and the three become friends and climbing companions. At 22, Matthews is a strapping, successful stockbroker from London, England.
What do you think, Mike? Is it all right now?
Yeah, pretty good. The girls loved him. He had a great career going. We talked about how in the summertime, he and I would move him from London to Monaco, where he was going to shift his practice.
Both men are about to make their own kind of Everest history. Rodney is poised to be the first man from Saskatchewan, Canada, to summit. Matthews, the youngest Englishman. Matthews is not as experienced, but while he is paid for a guide, he finds himself climbing most often with Rodney and Brown, who act as their own guides.
Nicely done, Mikey.
5 camps have been established along this route up Everest. Using base camp and advanced base camp as home, climbers can adjust gradually to the changes in altitude. Acclimatizing to Everest requires multiple trips that can span months. Each trip, they climb a little further before returning to a lower camp for rest. This process decreases the risk of serious illness. Acclimatizing can be a problem for many climbers. Although he suffers from asthma, Brown's climb is going smoothly. Now they must face one of Everest's most dangerous challenges, the Khumbu icefall.
Very important. When there is rope, clip to the rope. Always clip to the rope with a carabiner. We want safe expedition for all members, okay?
The Khumbu icefall is 2,000 vertical feet of ice. There are ice towers called seracs that are as big as skyscrapers, littered about everywhere.
There's another ladder right down here. Incredible. And another ladder right over there. I have never seen anything like this in my life.
And like we do everything else in life, it's got to be one step at a time. I know I'm climbing Everest. I still got the big picture in mind, but for the moment, I'm not getting to the next camp. I'm not even getting to the other side of this crevasse. I'm just getting to the next rung on that ladder.
The icefall is daunting and exhausting. They turn back for base camp to rest. When they arrive, something big is happening.
Well, this I really believe to be one of the most incredible events to be happening in Everest history.
Babu Chiri is a Sherpa who has become a Nepalese national hero for summiting Everest 10 times. Today, he is returning from spending an incredible 21 hours at the summit. Babu Chiri's success is thrilling, but Rodney is concerned. Babu climbs more than is safe for anyone, trying to break records. Rodney worries about the climber's future. Not everything is dramatic on the mountain. Rest days between climbs allow for basic chores.
It's the 24th of April. I left Canada on March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. It's the first time I've done my laundry.
Well rested and acclimatized to the altitude, it's time to push for the summit. After crossing the icefall and beyond, Rodney, Brown, and Matthews make it up to the final camp, Camp 4. Then, a crisis. The expedition leader has suffered a stroke. Rodney and Brown may be forced to abandon their summit dreams. As the leader of the Everest expedition falls ill, Dave Rodney's summit attempt might go with him.
But this was the third time that he had to be rescued by his own clients on a mountain in the Himalayas. He was suffering from many strokes. He had to be rescued. He had to be taken down the mountain.
People were not happy at all. People had paid a lot of money to be where they were geared up, ready for the summit, and they weren't happy. No.
Yeah, that sounds good. Then he can go down. There's lots more amoxicillin base camp over.
Brown is the team doctor. He decides to take the sick climber back to base camp. Unfortunately, the entire team must descend with them. Further up the mountain, Rodney and Matthews are relying on radio contact. They are unclear about the situation.
I couldn't quite understand why the entire team was pulled off the whole mountain at a time when we had the right personnel, the right resources, the right weather conditions, the right route conditions to make an attempt on the summit.
I thought we should have most of the members of the team with us just in case he became a stretcher case.
Without much leadership, the men have to make the best decision. They decide Rodney and Matthews can stay at Camp 2. They might still be able to make it to the summit. But the weather changes, making that impossible.
We were told on day 5 there's a 5-day weather forecast. There's nothing but high winds. That wind can pick you up off the summit ridge and throw you 2 vertical miles into Tibet. So we thought, okay, fine, we'll come down.
When they reach base camp, there is a new team leader in charge. He makes what Rodney considers to be a bad decision. Rodney and Matthews are told they will be climbing again in just 2 days. They are physically exhausted, and the weather looks bad.
Michael and I were stuck. It's a tough road to come all the way back down, too. And it's an even tougher one to go all the way back up.
After only 2 days of recovery, Rodney finds himself facing a hard climb for the second attempt at the summit.
When I got to the foot of the ice fall on that trip, I just looked up and I thought, wow, I've already lost 35 pounds.
It is even more difficult for the less experienced Matthews, who has also started to weaken and slow considerably. Other climbers are aware of Michael's condition and question if he should push for the summit.
He was actually told or ordered by one of the Sherpas to turn around because it was unsafe to carry on. And Michael had chosen to ignore that.
At some point on Everest, it becomes every man for himself. Although concerned for his teammate, Rodney must focus on preparing himself for the crucial days to come.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6:37 on the morning of, May the 9th. We're hoping this is going to be our second and final successful summit push. The weather forecast seems to indicate that there should be lower winds between the 11th and the 13th. So we're hoping 13 may be a lucky number for us. We'll soon find out. Just over 23,500 feet. We must be at Camp 3. What a day this has been, May the 11th. If it wasn't for my good friend, Mike Matthews, with a little pep talk, I don't know if I would have made it, buddy. It's true. Hey, shine the light on your face. How you feeling, pal?
I'm feeling just fine.
Oh, yeah?
Slight cough because of the dry air, but I'm sure Dave's soup will make everything all right.
Whoa, it looks like we're ready to eat, buddy. Yeehaw!
As the departure approaches, Rodney checks the inventory of supplies. He discovers his oxygen valve isn't working, the problem they anticipated upon their arrival.
We tried one, didn't work. Tried another bottle, didn't work. Tried another one, didn't work.
Normally, this could mean the end of a summit attempt. Luckily, one of the Sherpas finds 2 bottles that work. Things are now in place to go for the summit.
Here we are, finally. Wednesday afternoon, ready, set for our final mountain. We should be there at about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, thinking of traversing over. So we have our work cut out for us, Dave and I.
That's exactly right. Well said, Dr. Brown. We're going that way.
Here we go.
All right.
10 midnight.
They start out in the
Headed
dark,
off.
and hours
This is
pass.
the big one. Let's hope the wind.
Rodney climbs above Denis Brown to serve as motivation. Suddenly, Rodney's headlight goes out. The extra battery is frozen solid. He is stranded at more than 28,000 feet.
I thought, my trip's over. I gotta turn back. So I start taking a few steps backwards, and I see well down below me in the valleys on both sides in Nepal and Tibet these incredible lightning storms that were, boom, casting shadows behind me. So I thought, well, gee, that could be like my light source. So I wasn't gonna let that stop me.
But his water line has also frozen. Without fluids to sustain him, there can be no summit.
Even though it's 40 below, I'm gonna take all the clothes off my upper body. I'm gonna wrap that frozen water hose around me, hoping that my body heat will melt the ice and I can keep that flow going. Put my clothes back on, continue the climb.
Soon, Rodney realizes he can no longer see Brown climbing below him. He has no idea that Brown's headlamp has also failed, and that he too is trying to overcome the fear setting in.
I was now alone, without oxygen, without a headlamp, in the pitch dark, and then I lost the rope. And that was a terrifying part of my evening. It was absolutely frightening.
With Rodney's frozen water line and Brown becoming lost, their Everest summit attempt has become terrifying. But every climber's worst nightmare is still ahead of them. Stuck on Mount Everest without light, Rodney and Brown have lost each other and struggle to keep calm. Brown has also lost the rope that will guide him safely along the route.
I spent a good hour to an hour and a half scouring the face, backwards and forwards, climbing, trying to locate this rope. I knew that I had to carry on, and I did. I eventually did find the rope, clipped into it again with a lot of relief, you can imagine.
Within hours, dawn breaks, and Brown can once again see. But he is completely spent, his breathing so labored he cannot take another step higher. Just 250 feet from the peak, his summit is over. Further up the mountain, Rodney has surpassed the immediate danger and continues to push for the summit. He assumes Brown is headed back to Camp 4 as he faces the Hillary step. There are now less than 200 feet separating him from his goal.
That section is like climbing a 7-story building, the outside of which at some point is only a foot wide. And to the right, it's 2 vertical miles straight down to that. So you went over a little bit to the left. It's a quick trip back to advanced base camp. We call 8,000 straight down.
Finally, he pulls his body up to an incredible 29,035 feet, a magic number on Mount Everest. Rodney has made it to the summit. There is no place higher on Earth.
You know what? That childhood dream that started out with prayers finally became true. It's a lifelong wish. Right then, very aloof from the world, furthest point on the planet I could be from human help, that I ran completely out of the problem, oxygen. That oxygen mask was becoming much more like a plastic bag, suffocating me, and I knew I couldn't panic it.
At that moment, another climber emerges with a solution, an extra bottle of oxygen. With the oxygen, Rodney manages 33 minutes at the top. But the altitude is playing havoc with his body. He cannot remain any longer.
Reaching the top is optional. Returning back home is mandatory. And you're only halfway there when you get to the top. The finish line is actually at the bottom.
On the way down, he meets Michael Matthews, just below the summit at the base of Hillary Step. Matthews asks Rodney if he thinks he should make a summit attempt. Rodney advises him to discuss his health, oxygen, and the weather with his guide. Rodney notices that the guide isn't immediately in sight.
I said, well, listen, whatever you decide to do, I want you to come back and say hello at Camp 4, because we got to plan a big party for once we get back down this hill. And we wished each other well. I continued on down. He went up to the top.
Shortly after, Rodney encounters Denis Brown.
Dave summited with using oxygen. Then I was not able to reach the summit. This is my summit here. It's called the South Summit. So I feel very, very positive about what we did.
They immediately start to climb down. Real celebrations will begin when everyone is safe at the lower camp. But Rodney has a bad feeling.
I kept looking for Mike upon descent. Conditions were getting much, much worse. The winds picked up from 50 to 100 to 150 kilometers an hour. The jet stream was picking us up and dropping us 20 feet at certain points.
Rodney makes it back to Camp 4, to a hero's welcome. He has become one of a select few to reach the summit in Everest history. Exhausted, he goes to sleep. When he awakens, the elation turns to horror. Michael Matthews has not returned.
I thought I heard Mike Matthews' voice around 6 o'clock, so I didn't really think more of it. I just thought, wow, we're finally back. That's a good thing. But the next morning, one of the guys came in and said that Mike was still on the mountain.
The storm that Rodney had escaped has enveloped the mountain, and Matthews is nowhere to be seen. Then another ominous sign. At dusk, Michael Matthews' guide arrives back at camp, alone.
No climber, let alone a guide. Walks away from a situation like that.
The team demands to know why the guide has left Matthews. The guide says they had become separated in the storm. He had advised Matthews to turn back because of the weather, but Matthews had refused.
Michael was absolutely, completely determined that he would summit Mount Everest.
As the hours pass, each minute confirms what every climber dreads. In the morning, it is clear. The mountain has claimed yet another casualty.
Devastated. Really, that's the right word for it. We were all totally devastated to realize that he just would not be coming down again.
Rodney wants to try to find Matthews, hoping against odds that he might still be alive. But the mountainside is enveloped in storm conditions, with the temperatures dipping below -50 and the jet stream gusts in excess of 150 kilometers per hour.
I wanted to run up there and pull him down by the ankles if I had to. The weather got much, much worse, and my tent mates had convinced me that if I made some vain attempt at a rescue, I'd simply be feeding the mountain with another body.
What's more, the team must descend the mountain in the deteriorating weather.
And we couldn't see, at points, our gloves in front of our faces.
In addition to the storm, Rodney battles hemorrhaging of his eye.
You see, the eye was swelling to the point where part of the retina was detached. There are so many ways to get injured or killed on Mount Everest.
The most severe pain is knowing that he leaves his 22-year-old friend behind.
It should be probably one of the happiest times of my life. Lying here in my tent at Dad's base camp. It's not worth it. It's not worth it when somebody dies. Especially when it didn't need to happen. I'm so sorry. Mike. I wish you peace, buddy.
Somewhere on the mountain is the body of Michael Matthews. As Rodney reaches base camp, he makes a vow. He will return to this place of great exhilaration and terrible tragedy.
One of the reasons that I had to go back to Everest was to put some closure to Michael's death, both for myself and for Michael's family if I could.
Climbing the mountain once has proven devastating. Rodney is tempting fate by going back to Everest. When George Mallory attempted Mount Everest in 1924, he was asked why. Because it was there, was the answer heard around the world. People have always wondered why some need to climb Everest. And once the top is reached, where is there to go?
In many ways, coming back from Everest is the hard part.
Dave Rodney returns home from Everest, haunted by Michael Matthews' death. But he is also a celebrity, in high demand for speaking engagements. He begins to work with Jennifer Adams, whose job it is to book appearances for keynote speakers. It turns into a very personal relationship.
He came into the office and was extremely giddy.
I just thought, what a beautiful, talented woman.
And I was thinking, either this guy's on too much caffeine or something.
Well, I dropped something off in person rather than just emailing, and we started talking.
And that led to him asking me out for coffee about 4 hours later, and we've pretty much been together ever since.
But Rodney is still looking for a way back to Everest. The chance comes with his friends Leo and Deryl Kelly. The Canadian father and son team plan to scale Everest and need someone who has been there to help them. Rodney needs a team he knows and trusts. They make the decision to go together.
It was a very different situation, and it had to be, or else I wouldn't have gone. I was going with people that I liked and trusted and respected.
I think you're going to do it correctly this time. Maybe Dave saw Deryl as a Michael. Maybe he could help Deryl in ways that maybe Michael might have needed some help.
It would have to affect Dave. I mean, here it is. He's in the same situation that he found himself in years before.
Jennifer Adams knows about his plans, but he hasn't told his parents. When he does, it is not well received.
I really was angry, and I thought, child, do you not know what you've put us all through? You've been lucky once. Why are you testing your luck?
Why? Why would you want to do something that you have already accomplished? He said, for example, that Wayne Gretzky didn't stop with his first Stanley Cup. He wanted to win another one. So it's just an acceptance that we've learned to live with.
Rodney has had to overcome serious physical setbacks. Before ever going to Everest, he had broken his back in 6 places while ski jumping and had 4 knee surgeries. Then, during training, he tears a bicep while climbing in the Rockies. Despite his setbacks, he manages to get himself into peak physical condition. By now, Rodney and Jennifer Adams are engaged, and she makes a big decision. Even though she has never been out of North America, she decides to go to base camp.
That made it easier for me to deal with him living his passion and his dream. The first time I saw the mountain was on the beginning of day 3 of the trek. It takes 10 days to trek to base camp, over 60 miles. And you can see the tip of Everest on day 3, and you still have 7 days before you get there.
Upon arriving in base camp, it is clear things are different from the 1999 trip. Rodney and the Kellys are organized and well prepared. They can relax and enjoy a special atmosphere found only on the mountain.
And this is my tent. Right here.
What?
And the lovely Jennifer. This is the view that I've got right outside my tent.
As Adams prepares to go home, the team prepares for their climb. Adams knows it could be the last time she will ever see Rodney.
It was an extremely emotional time. So you basically say everything that you want to say, because I didn't want to have any regrets. I needed to tell him, I'm proud of you for whatever you do, but I also wanted to know it's okay if you don't make it to the top. It's not always about making it to the top.
She believed so much in me and my dream, my abilities and my judgment, that I felt free to be who I was and apply everything that I am to the fulfillment of the goal.
It starts out as a textbook climb.
You know, you sit and you daydream about the Himalayas and you daydream about the ice fall, and Everest never disappoints, I think. You can make 100 expectations, but it's always more spectacular, more incredible, more exciting than you ever dreamed of.
But as they ascend, they aren't acclimatizing well. Rodney is also reminded of Michael Matthews at every turn.
He was on my mind a lot as I kind of scanned the western side of the pyramid of Everest. It's been an extremely unusual day here at Advanced Base Camp, 21,000 feet.
Soon, something happens that tests the mettle of every climber.
I walked into our Advanced Base Camp tent and found 2 of my Sherpa friends. I asked them how they were doing, and they burst into tears, something I've never seen Sherpas do before.
Dave's earlier premonition has come true. There is another death on Everest. April 29th, 2001. Mount Everest Advanced Base Camp is silent as climbers come to grips with something far too common on this mountain. Babu Chiri, the legendary Sherpa Rodney met on the mountain in 1999, the one who has summited Everest 10 times, the one who knows the mountain better than anyone, has been killed.
You see, he was walking from his tent to another at Camp 2, the second safest place on Mount Everest. But instead of walking down the path or securing himself to a line, telling a friend, letting people know where he was going to be, he took a little shortcut. And as he did, he must have placed his boot on one soft spot that opened up the fast 40 feet down. He went straight down, head first.
Shall we raise our cups to Babu?
Rodney helps retrieve Babu's body and wrap it for burial. The experience is unnerving.
At that point, I pretty much decided my trip was over. I thought maybe it was too much of an ego trip to continue.
But he's come too far and can't desert Leo and Deryl Kelly. Then, as summit day approaches, it's Leo who has a change of heart.
So I decided not to go up because I haven't been getting much sleep. Plus I have this inner feeling that it wasn't quite right to go up. This is a big, big mountain. It's all those things you hear, romantic things about base camp and climbing, don't believe them. This is a mean mountain. Everything's got to be working for you before you go anywhere, so if it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Then we started to experience the worst weather in 30 years.
The weather has become their biggest obstacle. It has been consistently bad, and the team spends 15 days at base camp waiting for a break. It is a crucial time because their climber's permit expires on May 31st. With just a week left on the permit, the weather finally breaks.
We just seemed to hit this little window, and it was looking great. The 23rd was a beautiful day, and the forecast was for a pretty good day on the 24th.
Deryl Kelly continues with Rodney. As they make it up the mountain, Rodney is consumed with looking for the body of Michael Matthews. He cannot find it. He is physically uncomfortable as well. His stomach is bothering him, and his knee is flaring up. He turns his thoughts to Deryl and what lies ahead.
But I revisited my reasons for going, which included climbing with Leo and Deryl. And when the weather improved, when the dynamics of the team were really gelling at the right time, when we finally had the perfect chance to climb the mountain, I just had to go. And my gut was saying, you know what, everything's going to be fine.
It is Wednesday, May 23rd, 9:22 p.m. Guys are up at Camp 4, South Call. Spoke to them about 8:30, and last word I had, they were just brewing up some drinks and stuff, and they were going to try to go for a summit attempt.
May 24th, 2001. Step by step, they finally close in on the summit. All the while, Jennifer Adams and Leo's wife Sheila Kelly, as well as Rodney's parents, have been on high alert, phoning each other every hour.
I had his funeral all planned. I did. I just really felt he wouldn't come back.
And what I was concerned about is not his ability to do the trek up to the top, but the unforeseen, the storm, or perhaps the landslide or something of that nature.
Back at base camp, Leo is manning the radio.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's 4:55. Just had a call about 10 minutes ago. The guys are at the
summit. 28,710 feet. They're making incredible time.
As a climber, Leo is excited for his team. As Deryl's father, he is worried.
Really me that got him into this. Here he is. It's the biggest mountain, the highest mountain in the world, going on a little ridge. It never happens.
At 8 a.m., Dave Rodney and Deryl Kelly finally reach the top of the world. After all the years of preparation, they experience an unforgettable half hour.
I got to the summit and I sat down. It's overwhelming. I started to cry. I was just so happy to be there. It just blew me away.
It was really tough getting to the top this time. You look down, every corner of the world is bounded with trees. You actually see the curvature of the earth. When you look up and even though it's a brilliant, gorgeous day, you see the color black because you're that close to outer space.
I got the call from Sheila. She had received a call from her husband, and she was so excited. I don't know what offers she was taking, but I didn't know whether something tragic had happened or they were successful. She said, they've summited. All 5 of them have summited.
I was really holding back because they're still at 8,000 meters and 26,000 feet. I'm not celebrating anything until I see them walk through the ice fall.
The danger is indeed far from over. Every extra minute spent at 29,000 feet makes the descent that much more harrowing. As on his last trip, Rodney begins to suffer retinal hemorrhaging.
If I was looking straight ahead out of my left eye, there was a complete blind spot. And I felt like a piece of glass about to shatter if I did anything wrong. And, I have never been more mentally, physically, spiritually exhausted in my life.
When he makes it to camp, he is close to collapse. There is no denying the physical toll. Later, half asleep in his tent, he hears a teammate describe him as near the edge.
So, I better be careful tonight. I've got 2 more days before I get back to base camp, and then I'm going to be able to let everyone know that we had a fairy tale ending. And that's exactly what happened, thank God.
Knowing that he was back at Camp 4 was huge. There's still a big part of the mountain to climb, but summit day is the hardest day, and most people die on descent.
Finally, after the long climb down, Dave walks back into base camp. His journey is a success.
Dave came through, he came through earlier than Deryl, it was great, and celebration, everybody hugging each other, and then waiting for Deryl. An hour goes by, Deryl, the last guy out of it, but it was tremendously walked through the ice fall for the last time. And I just sort of dropped everything and ran to him. It was very emotional.
For me, the emotions really ran high. It was just like, yeah, we both did it. We're both climbing well, and we got to the top.
Dave Rodney has become the first Canadian to summit twice.
I think it has a lot to do with overcoming some of that, perhaps, childhood need to do something special, to do something worthwhile, to challenge yourself.
Rodney did not find Michael Matthews' body on Mount Everest, but he was able to say goodbye. More importantly, he and his teammates returned safely. Rodney also earned a powerful philosophy.
We can't live on a summit. It's the valley that sustains us.
I think he's a very high achiever. And I think he just had to do this for his own personal satisfaction.
I hope that David learns that he is nearing 40 years of age and that maybe he'll back off a little bit. go to base camp and show people what a beautiful place Everest is without going any higher.
Rodney has been leading groups of trekkers to base camp. He has also been traveling internationally to share his story and inspire others. Dave and Jennifer Rodney plan to raise a family. They will also launch their Top of the World Society, an organization that raises support for the Sherpa people of Nepal. The mountain is never far from their minds.
I've learned from Everest more strength in myself than I ever realized that I had. And that the sky is the limit in whatever you dream to do.
Anyone who has a dream, a mission, a call, vocation of some sort deserves to make it into the answer to that call. I think once we find out what our limits are, find out where that line is, and just push it over a little bit, it's a real challenge, but I think it's part of what makes life worth living.